Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Silver Stacking Podcast. I am Silver Slayer, and we are here with Andy Shectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin, one of, if not the most respected company out there. If you guys don't know, Andy's the one who filled that $50 million order in 2 days, over 900,000 eagles, over 100,000 ounces in junk, which is insane itself, and gold. So send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. Let them know Silver Slayer sent you. We have new deals every single Monday. I'll post a link in the description for this one, but every Monday right now, we have a quarter ounce of gold, 2023 eagles, which is here's a quarter ounce of gold right here. And we also have 5-ounce silver Nordic bars, which are only $1.99 over spot. So if you guys want some of these opportunities, make sure to hit up Miles Franklin. You guys know Andy if you've seen him on my channel. He's a great guy as well. So info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know Silver Slayer sent you. Andy, what is up? What's going on?
How you doing, brother? Good to see you again, my friend. And all is good. It's the weekend, so I love Fridays, man. I love Friday nights. I love Saturdays, and it's constant chugging and grinding, man. And so much is happening and changing day by day by day. It's exhausting trying to keep up on it. So it's nice to let my brain just kind of decompress Friday. So I got this with you here. I'm gonna go hit the golf course, and then I'm gonna have I don't know, a few cocktails anyway Friday night. So anyways, I'm in good spirits. Good to see you too again, buddy. And let's chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I have something that I wanted to show you. It is an interview with Michelle McCory, and I think the guy's name's Ken Oling, talking about how Jackson Hole Summit react to the BRICS. And I think that's going to be really cool, but I want to share that a little later once we get into things. I also have a huge announcement coming up. Big things are happening around here. I'm super excited, and I want to thank Andy for all these opportunities. So first
Pleasure
things
is mine.
first,
It's well deserved. It's well deserved, and whatever you're going to announce, pleasure is mine.
yeah. First, I wanted to just ask Andy any updates with the BRICS, with anything like that, anything significant that the people need to know. You're the expert on that. I talk about silver, but yeah, what's going on?
Well, since the last time we talked about the new 6 countries that were admitted and the reasons why they were admitted. And now we see that the government of Venezuela has formalized its petition to join the BRICS. A lot of people don't know this about Venezuela, but they have what is believed to be the largest oil reserve in the world, and they also have a very large important reserve of natural gas. It's also a key geographic position to the entrance of South America. One of the common factors you'll notice with Venezuela and the Maduro government, they are being sanctioned by the West, and it is the sanctioning of these countries that is certainly the rallying cry that is pushing these countries together to find safety in numbers. And so this is a big one as far as I'm concerned. I want to read something to you, which I think kind of is reminiscent of this. And I don't think people quite understand why this portion of the world, I mean, I think we all inherently understand it, but I want you to think about why a good portion of the world looks at us as bad guys and being hypocritical and being coercive and bullies. And where we can go into a country like Iraq and destroy their country. We've been there since 2003. That's when we invaded. And many of the Iraqis will tell you they invaded illegally. A lot of the people around the world will tell you that. Can you imagine if we were being occupied by a foreign military since 2003? They destroyed our country, toppled our regime, put in a new government, and then listen to this. So right now in Iraq, there are 14 banks that are being sanctioned by the West, by the United States. And the reason that they're being sanctioned is that these banks tried to pay for natural gas from Iran, which is on the sanction list. Now, as a side note, Iran, in the span of 1 year, has joined the BRICS, formally been admitted, and formally been admitted into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You remember I talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union, along with the Belt Road, every time I mention the BRICS. They're all the same countries. They'll all be together in the end. In fact, the president of Belarus is asking for a meeting to join these groups together. It's happening. It's coming. Promise you. And so, you know, Shanghai Cooperation Organization being the largest financial and military regional organization in the world, it's not a joke. Anyways, so you have Iran and Iraq, which most people don't know, had a peace deal brokered between the two countries by the adult in the room, China. First ever railway is being built between the two countries. So these banks are buying natural gas from Iran because it's 120 degrees in the summer and they're frying to death, and the banks get sanctioned. No, you can't do that. You can't do that, says the West. Now, we've already occupied the country for the past, 20 years, and they're still sanctioning banks because they're trying to buy natural gas to cool their homes and whatnot. So anyways, check this out. So this is from a gentleman who his name is Hadir Al-Shama. He's a spokesman for the 14 banks, okay? And he says, the sanctions are the latest effort by Washington to coercively intervene in Iraq's economy to the detriment of the country the U.S. Army illegally invaded and occupied in 2003. This intervention includes efforts to block Iraqi payments for Iranian natural gas, which has led to power blackouts amid Iraq's blistering hot summer in recent weeks. Since 2003, get this, this is where it gets just nuts. And this is what I'm talking about, why these countries are joining together against the West. Since 2003, all Iraqi oil revenue has been paid into an account with the U.S. Federal Reserve, allowing Washington to control the Iraqi economy further and pressure its government. Although Iraqis formed an allegedly sovereign government after the U.S. invasion, Iraq is still restricted from opening accounts for its oil earnings outside the United States. Think about that. You can't open any accounts outside the U.S. to put your profit into. No, it has to go to the Federal Reserve. In fact, all of Iraq's oil funds, which in 2022 amounted to more than $90 billion, remain in one single account at the New York Fed. The institution that 2 years ago unilaterally blocked Afghanistan from accessing its foreign reserves, plunging the nation into an unparalleled crisis. Think about that shit. So for 20 years, we've occupied them, and we still don't let them do anything with their own natural resources. Yeah, you can sell it, but the money has to go to the New York Fed, period. You can't send it anywhere. Do you understand the hypocrisy? Do you understand the fact that Iraq just made it illegal for companies to trade in dollars? They will go to prison and lose their business. They don't appreciate us, yet we go and destroy their country under the guise of weapons of mass destruction. Don't find any, say we're sorry. 20 years we've occupied that country. Get the hell out, they're thinking. And we take the money that they use or that they earn from their natural resources, and it has to go and be held at an account at the Fed, and then they can only do what we say they can do with that money. Do you understand the problem here? And again, I'm a patriot. I am not someone who doesn't respect this country, but oh my God, they're doing things that the rest of the world, you can understand why they're pushing back against the West.
I always tell people that, like, it's a brilliant idea of what they're doing. It was a long time coming. I mean, you can't say this came out of nowhere and there's no reason for this, especially with the green era and all the oil. That's where I think the biggest underlying factor people don't understand is how we're trying to go green, the West, and we need all these precious metals, and all of a sudden who's buying all the silver?
How about all the rare earths? You're right. And, it's not just that we're trying to go green. I mean, our administration signed an executive order saying by 2030 we'll be 50% green, and 2080, 80% green, 2050, 80% green. And so you're right. Not only, going green, do you need the natural resources, but most of that stuff is found on the Eurasian continent, in Indonesia and in China. The rare earth metals, the copper, the cobalt, the zinc, the nickel, all that stuff. The majority of all of those deposits are found over there. We haven't thought this through very well.
It's not realistic. Well, I forget who said it. It was like Ted Butler or Keith Neumeyer, someone, they were talking about this, and they said, if you think we have enough silver to go green, you're living in la la land. And that hit me hard. I was like, geez, but the numbers don't add up. Biggest record-breaking supply deficits this year, 1.21 billion ounces, hundreds of million ounces in the red. Imagine by the year 2030, 2035, what the demand would be. 2 billion ounces, regardless, we don't have enough silver for it. And once people realize that, truly realize that, or big tech realizes that, I feel like the producers will turn into the consumers, and the consumers will turn into the producers. People like me, almost you and I, but people like us watching this video will be able to sell it to people that need it. Right.
Well, not only that, you listen to Keith Neumeyer is a buddy of mine, and he's a CEO of First Majestic Silver. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
He's not a geologist like most mining executives are. He's a businessman, and a hell of one. And he mentioned recently that for the first time ever in the conferences around North America that he's speaking in, he's seeing automotive manufacturers attending these conferences, and they're trying to disintermediate the process and not go through the banks or not go through the COMEX, but go directly to the producers. And that disintermediation is exactly because of the deficit that you're seeing. But here's an interesting one for you when you talk about how the East is going to get all the metal. There's something called arbitrage. And most people know what that means. For those who don't, that means if you have two different exchanges, one exchange is selling it for X and the other exchange is selling it for maybe X plus 1 or X minus 1 or 2 or 3. And so you buy it on one exchange and sell it on the other, or vice versa. And that little bit you make, bing, 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 you do it by large amounts. You can buy a gazillion shares and make 1 cent on a gazillion shares, buying it here and selling it there. It's taking advantage of a discrepancy in price on different exchanges. Well, I said a long time ago when they started talking about the Moscow Metals Exchange, I said, this is how they're going to do it. They're going to siphon all the metal out of the West by just listing the price, because these are the countries that own it all, the Eurasian countries. And they'll just lift the price higher by saying the COMEX price is bullshit. Here's what we say the real price is. And this is cash and carry, like the Shanghai Gold Exchange. You go there, you pay cash, you get it, you leave. They have a futures market, but it's separate from the exchange. And so you could buy it and then walk away with it, basically, instead of, it's a futures market here on the COMEX. It dominates the price instead of, yes, you can stand for delivery, but the majority of the volume, many, 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 many times the physical delivery is the paper. So anyways, in current, last week, the price of gold in the United States was $1,909. The price of gold in China on the Shanghai Gold Exchange was $2,020 US. $110 divergence, historic divergence, the biggest ever, 6%. And this 6% spread between the COMEX and the LBMA and Shanghai, think about this. This happens 3 weeks after you find basically OPEC joins the BRICS. UAE, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, the big oil producers in OPEC. And so when you think about it, is China playing their gold card? That we talk about the fact that they want to own all the gold and they're going to back a new currency by gold. And there is no question that because they revalue it as a tier 1 asset, BIS understands the significance of gold. So how do they do it? Well, they have Shanghai say, we'll pay you $2,020. And the West says, we're only selling it for $1,909. Do you think the bullion banks will not drool on themselves, the JP Morgans and the Citibanks, and they're going to sell all the metal to arbitrage the hell out of it over to China, and they get it all. And I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane that this is happening. And I don't know if it's just an odd moment because of, some people say it has to do with import or export restrictions or dollar restrictions, whatever it is. I think it will open their eyes and say, well, this is how we get it all. We just make the price way higher than the bullshit Western system says, and then they'll arbitrage it all. And we'll just stand for delivery off the LBMA and the COMEX and take it all anyway. And so we are entering that period of time where, yeah, it's going to disappear. One other thing I'd like, you mentioned Ted Butler, and I give him credit. You know, the guy has stick-to-itiveness. My sixth grade teacher always used to say, you need stick-to-itiveness. And whatever, I guess it's a word if you think about it, but I give him credit. He sticks to it as it comes to analyzing the COMEX market. It's a tough game because it's the same thing. The commercial banks let the price fall, they suck in the speculators, and then, or they let the price rise rather, they suck in the speculators, they hammer it, they let the options expire worthless, they rinse, wash, and repeat, and they screw the managed money over and over and over again. Managed money goes long, commercial banks go short, they smash the price, the managed money sells, the commercial banks buy it below their short, they make money, and then it just goes over and over and over. But you can't do that when the supplies are disappearing, when the exchanges are bleeding it away. You have nothing to deliver when they stand for delivery. So check this out, what Ted Butler said, and then you can comment on it.
Yeah.
The true exposure of the call options on COMEX is only 25,000 contracts of the more than 70,000 contracts of total call option open interest. That would bring the total COMEX futures and call options short exposure to 135,000 contracts, 110,000 futures contracts plus 25,000 call option contracts, or 675 million ounces. That means for every dollar increase in the price of silver, the longs will make 675 million and the shorts will lose 675 million. At a $5 price increase, it would amount to more than a $3.4 billion gain and loss, while a $10 increase would amount to a collective gain and loss of $6.75 billion. So when you talk about one of these days, something goes bang, and the commercial banks are on the other side of this where it goes up, because in the end, they will be on the right side, and it will bankrupt. It will bankrupt these managed money traders. These hedge funds will go up in a blaze of glory as they have to cover those ounces, and there's not enough metal there to cover. If there's 675 million ounces, there's only fucking 40 million ounces in the registered category. Where do you come up with 635 million ounces of silver? I mean, I see some silver behind you right there. Maybe you could contribute towards the 635 million ounces. It would blow things up to a degree that I don't think people have any comprehension, because when you're short, your losses are unlimited. And as you're scrambling to cover, and you have to find the silver to cover, what happens? It's extraordinary. And one of these days, Ted will be vindicated. One of these days, the fact that you have this kind of a concentrated short position in silver, which is more than any commodity ever traded, it's wrong. And it's not only that it's wrong, the question is why. And the why will work itself out, because again, you can only manipulate a market over time by pushing in the direction that it is, and the rest of the world is buying it.
Ted Butler wrote a brilliant article about that. I like how he sticks to the fundamentals, and he understands, like you said, the COMEX on inside out. He wrote this article breaking down why manipulation cannot overpower the fundamentals of, low supply and high demand. Right. I gotta find that article and make it an entire video about it, because when I read it, it was so geniusly put together. Like, he breaks things down so good, like what you just read. You said something, though. You actually said a couple of things, and I wanted to break off into that. You mentioned how I could, for example, donate some of that silver to fill that, because we don't have enough. I mean, COMEX is publicly came out and stated that they didn't have to. I mean, the numbers don't lie. But Executive Order 6102 by FDR, 1930. Your gold is no longer owned by you. These 2 ounces of gold and this quarter ounce of gold, it's not mine anymore.
That's it.
It's right there. Owned by the Federal Reserve. And if you don't turn it in, you will pay a $10,000 fine, 10 years imprisonment, or both.
And in
Every time,
1933, $10,000 was worth millions of dollars today.
yes. Think about that. Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Think about that. When the government has confiscated people's gold, and I made a video covering all the times throughout history. It's always in times of economic uncertainty, economic turmoil, or war. I've talked about the possibility of silver being confiscated, and it wouldn't be like the freaking FBI kicks down my door and just takes this. It would be something like we'll buy it at a set price, or as far as you have to turn it in. I think they would push it more the narrative of like help us save the planet. We need silver for to make these solar panels or whatever. Like I feel like that would be their best bet. Who knows how it would go, but yeah, I've talked about that reality, and even more so, there is proof. 1980, the Hunt brothers, what happened? They owned some say up to 77% of the global silver supply. All those contracts turned into physical. That exposed it. Imagine if what you were saying.
The Hunt
If
brothers
everyone
changed the rules on the Hunt brothers then and said those
silver rule
long
7,
contracts were illegal. You can only own a
yes,
certain amount, but you could be short all the contracts in the
right.
world. Like,
Silver Rule 7 was that, and that led to Silver Thursday, and that was the highest price silver's ever been until this day. Think about that as well. Like if you look backwards, and you know why the Hunt brothers got into silver, because gold was illegal to own at that time. Gold was banned at that time as well. Like a lot of people, they don't know the history of this stuff. It's not that crazy. Like things have happened before. It's not. I feel like if someone talked about gold confiscation today, they'd be like, that would never happen. Or talking about banning silver, basically, that would never happen. But it's happened before. Like this stuff isn't that crazy. We're living in crazy times, so expect crazy things to happen. You know.
so our governments would never lock us down, and there would never be a pandemic where we
Right.
had to wear masks, and there would not. I mean, that's what 2020 taught me, was that you can never say never. And the things that are happening around us, I mean, just with the the social fabric of this country, you know, I mean, I will just simply say we're not a unified country anymore. We're not the United States. We're very divided, and that to me is more disturbing than most of what the mismanagement of the world reserve currency and the brain dead monetary policy. It's more along the fabric of this country being ripped apart with such I don't know. I don't even know what the right word is to say. We're just not unified anymore, and,
Yeah.
it's disturbing to me.
Yeah. So I want to show you this interview with Michelle McCory. And by the way, guys, if you haven't seen Andy Shectman's interview with Michelle McCory on Kitco News, you have to go watch it. It has 1.4 million views. They're talking about how BRICS missed a massive opportunity by not launching common currency now. And yeah, like I said, guy's name is Ken Oling. She's interviewing. But I want to share this section. Did Jackson Hole crowd react to the BRICS announcement? There also is one before that, but it's very long. I didn't want to read through, watch this entire thing, but I want to hear your thoughts on this section.
So, while this was happening, as we said, we had the Jackson Hole symposium, and many people were wanting to see if there was going to be any kind of acknowledgement of what was happening in South Africa from the central bankers gathered there. We didn't hear anything from Powell about this. Christine Lagarde did make some comment, some vague comment, didn't mention the BRICS specifically, but she did have this to say, and I'm quoting here. We're facing a deepening geopolitical divide and a global economy that is fragmenting into competing blocs. This is being accompanied by rising levels of protectionism as countries reconfigure their supply chains to align with new strategic goals. Over the past decade, the number of trade restrictions in place has increased tenfold, while industrial policies aimed at reshoring and friendshoring strategic industries are now multiplying. And while this has not yet led to deglobalization, evidence of changing trade patterns is mounting. What's your read on her comments there?
So I don't know if I even want to share his. I mean, I guess we could, but what are your thoughts on that? Oh, I can't hear you. 1 second.
Sorry about that. Yeah, what
Okay,
she's
there.
basically saying is that you're seeing all of these agreements being made. When the BRICS, during the meeting, everyone was waiting for them to issue a common currency, and they came back and they said, look, we've tasked the finance ministers with going back to the drawing board, come back with a common currency idea next year. In the meantime, let's all agree to trade with one another in common currencies, in our local currencies. And so that's exactly what you're seeing. You saw India purchase 1 million barrels of oil from the United Arab Emirates a couple of weeks ago and settled the transaction in rupee. You have India and Saudi Arabia discussing ways to do business without using the US dollar, and they're going to do that for energy. You have the largest airport in Iran that is being a contract was won by a Chinese contractor to do. It's $1.2 billion refurbishment. They're paying for it in oil. You know, you're seeing these countries like Brazil, the second largest exporter of corn in the world, trading with China only in real and in yuan. And so what you are seeing are all of these agreements. And now you see, you know, Turkey, and I'll let you play the rest of the video, but just a couple more examples. Turkey was just told by the European Union that they can't expect to join the EU anytime soon. So Erogen, who wants to join BRICS anyway, said, well, if necessary, we'll part ways with the EU. They're going to start trading. Venezuela now is only going to trade with the BRICS blocs. And why would they not? They're being sanctioned by the West, just like Iran is being sanctioned by the West. And now they're part of the BRICS and the Belt Road and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And these countries, I would argue, are not making these relationships out of economic agreements. Yes, they are, but the real reason they're doing it is out of necessity, because the West and the U.S. foreign policy is taking them out one at a time. And so that the rallying cry is, look what they're doing to everyone else. Let's all join together. And by the way, the ones that we're going to invite first just happen to be the ones that are very natural resource rich and the ones that are centered geographically in very key pivot points around the globe.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know, but China is actually the biggest consumer of silver as well. You know, and it's just like everything you mentioned is so obvious to, I guess, people who know this stuff, but I always come from I always try to look from the perspective of someone who's never heard of the BRICS before, or have no idea what this stuff isn't a conspiracy. It's not a myth. This is happening, folks. Like, this stuff is happening, even if you don't want to admit it, or you're a patriot and say we could never do that. I mean, honestly, it's hard to believe someone would be that, close-minded, but this stuff is real. So I'm going to play the rest of this now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a byproduct of first COVID and the awareness that happened when it came to supply chains breaking down. Then the war in the Ukraine, when you had this energy crisis in Europe, and now this idea that the BRICS are going to be able to sort of create a counterweight against the G7. So I think this is a byproduct of those three major trends. I think that it's just a matter of them stating the fact that they're very, very aware that these things are going to happen, or that are happening, and they have putting policies in place to make sure that they can minimize America's sort of a negative impact on the U.S. when these things, or how these things happen. I mean, the U.S. has been the sort of center of global trade, and they have the institutions to be able to protect this. So they have the infrastructure, they have the assets, they have everything that they need to be able to play in this space, and they're going to play very, very hard. So I think that it's a kind of a bullish statement, saying that they're aware of these things and they're up for the challenge. The U.S. is still going to push, still going to be a powerhouse, and not to count them out, especially when it comes to global trade.
Do you think that behind closed doors, the tone taken about this BRICS expansion is different?
Yeah, if I would guess that, going in, you saw the statements. that were sort of the answer to the Brazilian president about the BRICS currency, and them saying that, no, it is not going to be discussed. I think that they were just elated by this sort of response. And so internally, they could stop focusing on sort of having to deal with this kind of external or existential dollar crisis. And they could focus on, the US economy. They could focus on how to better handle their trade relations and how to build and shore up existing trade relations. So I think that all in all, it was a good day for the people at Jackson Hole. When it came to international geopolitics and economics, but now they have to focus on what's happening in the U.S.
Okay, so what did you think about that?
I don't think he seems like a bright guy, but that's the problem with the US and the West. They're very short-sighted. Oh, great, they didn't announce the common currency. Yippee. Well, that's just bullshit. You have, I believe, India and China, all of the BRICS are negotiating to abandon the US dollar in bilateral trade until the new common currency is issued. The finance ministers were told to go to the drawing board and come back to the table with their ideas next year. You have to understand, think of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. They deviated from the Western plan and they were taken out. And this is a deal where they're going to do things. Look, I don't think we're going to go to war with Russia and China, two of the three largest nuclear arsenals in the world, and the BRICS countries. But what I do think is that this is a very, 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 very big deal. And in order to do it the right way, you have to think in terms of years, in terms of decades. This BRICS deal has been going on for 17 years. What has accelerated it more than most people understand is the weaponizing of the dollar and all of these sanctions. This is what is bringing everyone in a expedited fashion. Let me in, like Venezuela. And it's going to happen. They are trading, they are abandoning the US dollar. And all of these countries are putting their local currencies before the dollar in trade, and they will come back with a joint settlement currency next year. That was what they said. Now, it's going to happen. The fact that all of the countries that are in the BRICS are the ones that either produce or accumulate all the metal and commodities and rare earths and hydrocarbons and oils and all of these things, that's besides the point. The finance minister from Russia has told us for over 2 years it will be backed by something. We know it will be a marriage of blockchain and gold and who knows what else, but it's coming, and the West can do or say whatever they want. They've damaged their reputation and their trustworthiness too much to ever come back, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why you're seeing a lot of our allies break ranks, like France, who said, can I come to the meeting in Johannesburg, and they turned him down. But a few weeks before that, he did a 50-point trade agreement with China, all the way up from 5G to military engagement, and denounced the West and the fight, the war in the Ukraine, and said we will have nothing to do with any aggression of Taiwan. And you have sides being chosen. You have Mexico. Our relations with them are not good, and they have formally expressed interest in joining the BRICS. So these countries are doing things like, you can't have a common currency until you have a big enough sphere of countries to use it. It's the mass adoption that makes it work. If you only have a handful of countries that use it, it's not going to have the impact. So since the meeting, what's important to understand, and let me just find the exact number here. Bear with me 1 second. But I want to say since the meeting, 27 countries, I want to say, I'm almost positive. Let's just say it's roughly, I don't know where I put it, but it's roughly 27 countries since the meeting have formally expressed their interest in joining, and another 22 or 3 have informally. You could possibly have 50 countries admitted more by next year. And you're talking, when you add in all of the countries with the Belt Road, the BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, Russia's a member of all of them. Saudi Arabia is in the BRICS, the Belt Road, the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They've applied to the New Development Bank. I mean, they're all going to be together. You're talking the majority of human population. And when they then flip the switch, bang, we now are issuing our new settlement currency. And we're only taking that for oil, and everyone in the world dumps dollars. The West will have nothing to do but put their head between their legs and brace for impact.
That's the scariest part.
It gave us a reprieve of a year, but to look at that as a good day for the West is just delaying the inevitable. It's like, you're on the river and you're tied to a raft and you can hear the falls coming. Remember, I've talked about logarithmic decay, little by little by little by little by little by little by little, bang, all at once. Well, where are we on that river? I mean, how many pieces can you pull out of the Jenga tower before the whole damn thing falls over? All of these countries working with one another outside the dollar, joining together. The majority of the world's rare earth metals and oil and all of the things needed to run an economy, country. We're incentivizing it, and I think that yeah, what he said is true, but it doesn't give me any peace of mind. It just when they finally come back with the right path, it'll be one that will be very difficult to derail.
Yeah. See, when I hear people say stuff like that, it reminds me of like when the dollar index is up or it's stronger and people are gaining hope in it. It's like, how, do you guys realize the dollar's lost 98% of its original purchasing power and we're $32 trillion in debt? Like, do you guys understand that? It's funny to me.
Well, not only 32 trillion in debt, I mean, let's call it what it really is. If you want to know what it really is, it's now 33 trillion in debt plus 120 plus trillion in Medicare, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions, 77 trillion shortfall in Social Security alone. So that's $155 trillion. And if you look and see what is the asset base of the United States, it's 5 trillion. The largest single asset, 1.6 trillion student debt, 40% of our assets. Google it, pop right up.
Yeah,
what is the largest asset of the United States? Student debt, $1.6 trillion. And while you're on Google, do it right now.
Is it up right now?
What is the largest asset of the United States government?
Can you see the screen right now?
Yeah.
The U.S. debt clock?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. U.S. national debt, 33 trillion. Debt per citizen is $98,000. Debt per taxpayer, 255,000. U.S. Federal Reserve spending is at trillion, 6 trillion, 116 billion, 954 million, 222,000.
And that doesn't even have the unfunded liabilities there, does it?
I don't know. I know you can dig deeper into this. Like you see down here, it goes mortgage loan, gold, supply and demand, home sales, source. Like you could even go to precious metals and you can look each state, world precious metals production 2020 year to day, and it shows each country as well how much reserves they like. This site is really interesting. Like when you dig a little deeper into it. But regardless, like this, we're not just pulling these numbers out of our ass. When I say
type into Google one time, what is the largest asset of the U.S. government? Oh, there you go. Student loans. Yeah. It's they consider that an asset. So we have 155 trillion in debt when
that's
you add
insane.
When you add on top of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions on top of the 33 trillion. We're 155 trillion in debt with 5 trillion in assets. That 1.6 trillion in student debt, which is a record, is the largest asset of the U.S. And they consider it an asset because you can't bankrupt yourself out of it. When Biden talks about forgiving student debt, he's forgiving the fingernail on the body. He's a tiny little bit to make himself look good, just like draining the strategic stockpile of oil to make inflation go lower. My niece's husband, the greatest guy in the world, worked his ass off, comes from nothing, and he's now 6 years old, and spent his entire adult life working his ass off to pay off his student debt. He'd like to jump through the TV screen every time he hears Biden say that. It's not fair. It's not right. And yes, what isn't right is the cost of college. That's true. But to forgive it for some and not for others who had to scrape to get to where they are, it's not right. And everything our administration is doing is ass backwards, and or bass backwards,
Holy,
however you want
I
to say
had
it. But
no idea. I had no idea about that.
yeah,
Wow.
so it's a crazy, crazy time, my friend, and that's why we own silver. We do not buy silver to get wealthy. Silver is
Right.
wealth. You
That
own
is
enough,
what
you'll
makes
be
us
wealthy.
wealthy.
You do not buy it and hope it goes to $500.
Right.
If you do, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Yeah, because if that is the case, then the consequences of that
If you can find a
or
McDonald's hamburger, if they have any, it'll probably be $20 a hamburger.
right.
I mean, what will a can of Coke be? $7? Those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So yeah, let's just be careful what we wish for. But it's been wealth that has outlived everything the world's ever thrown at it for 5,000 years.
Yeah.
And it's in the Bible, and it's outlived world wars and hyperinflation and Great Depression and pandemics, and it's still massively desired, accumulated, and needed in the world. So that's why you own it.
Yeah. And if you guys wanted to buy some of this shiny stuff, Andy is your guy. Hit up Miles Franklin. Send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know Silver Slayer sent you. Andy loves you guys, and it really does mean a lot when you guys, go through them. They're here's the thing. They're one of the only few authorized dealers through the U.S. Mint. The U.S. Mint banned everyone. They said, you know what, you can't buy directly from us anymore. Well, Andy still can. That speaks for itself, and especially moving forwards. Look, a lot of people are just buying U.S. minted stuff now, and there's a reason for that. And just imagine when these other companies, they have to go through third party. See, building relationships is critical, and Andy talks about that all the time. Relationships, building a business relationship, and I can offer you guys that with Andy, and I'm honored. It really is an honor to be able to share my audience. I love you guys. I always have. I don't try to cuss, but I bust my ass to give you guys the latest information and give you guys an opportunity. And me working with Andy it's that much better. So make sure you hit them up. We do have deals, quarter ounce of gold eagles, only $59.99 over melt. And then we also have 5-ounce Nordic bars, which are $1.99 over spot, which is a great deal as well.
Everything's on sale
So
too, man. Seriously,
yeah,
everything is on sale. And I want to
right.
clarify one thing. It's important. We are one of 27 authorized resellers. We are not the 7 primary distributors. So we were nominated by Prudential Beige, who then sold to Jeffries Beige. It's still an amazing honor. There's only 27 of us since 1986, and it puts us way high up on the food chain.
Yeah.
And the relationships I've made over 33 years, I wouldn't give up for anything. So I do want to be fair and say we are not one of the 7 primary distributors, but I am on first name basis with every single one of them. And the authorized reselling designation puts us on top of the food chain as far as you can go without being one of the 7 or 8 primary distributors. So
there you go.
to be fair, let's clarify that.
Yeah. Thank you for that as well, because but that speaks for itself. Like, I don't even have to say the $50 million order or the second one. You guys know he's very respected. You've seen him on everywhere, Kitco News, Robert Kiyosaki's channel, everywhere. So yeah, I think we can start to wrap this video up here. If you guys don't know, I'm doing a giveaway. I'm giving away some silver. If you wanted to enter, the links in the description or the pinned comment. Andy, is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap this up?
No, that's it, man. That's it. I look forward to doing this with you next week. I can't wait to hear your announcement. I already know what it is, but I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. Big things.
We need to do this every week because I really believe things are the one thing that's different, I guess, is that it's kind of like, like when you ride remember when you were young and you rode like a 10-speed bike. I don't even know if you were old enough to remember a 10-speed bike, but
I don't know if it went up to 10, but I do remember clicking that thing to go up.
So like you start you start in the low gears that you can pedal fast, but sometimes you start in the high gear by accident. It's like,
yeah.
That's kind of like what it is. I mean, if we go back to 2020, it was slow and then it gets going. And
Yeah.
where we are right now, it just seems we're chugging, and new things are happening every single day, and more and more and more and more to talk about. And you know, I love our conversations. It's cathartic to me, and so I look forward to coming back next week. I'll track you down. I'll find you, and
Yeah.
hope you have a good weekend, you and everyone else out there.
Yeah. You too, man. Have fun golfing today too. I know you went yesterday too, man. You golf a lot.
Yeah, well, I live on a golf course, and
That's perfect.
that's one of the perks
Yeah.
when you in fact, I'll put my golf hat on
Yeah.
right now. When you live on a golf course, you can find time to get out even if it's
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock at night, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm
heading out on my Friday game now, and but I'll look forward to catching up with you next week, my man.
Yeah. All right, guys. This was Silver Slayer. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys soon. Actually, tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.